I'm Teresa Carraggio, and this is Third Paradigm. My topic today is Cosmology and the Course, which means A Course in Miracles. I'd like to look at why astrology is actually the practical application of astronomy, and why the most practical, down-to-earth question that we can be asking is, what is reality? This seems like something that should be in a sophomoric philosophy class. But in reality, so to speak, you need to know what's true, because if you don't, you may end up spending your whole life, as you think it is, being afraid of things that really have no power over you, and never doing the things that are actually the things that you most want to be doing. So let's dive into this. In this episode, I'll be continuing to put together the pieces of Al-Sur or Osiris, and this part is about reclaiming the sky. It also will use Isaac Middle and his Down the Wombat Hole, Wholesome Astrology, and the beautiful AI art of Amy, of What's in a Name Really. So I suggest you check out the Substack for that. This all started because this past weekend I had dinner with one of my readers who happened to be in town. And we talked about economics, politics, metaphysics, and the Gnostics, who he had studied extensively. His opinion was that you could know the truth, especially through psychedelics and meditation, but you couldn't communicate it through words and logic, that words and logic were an impediment to knowledge. Now, I thought that was very un-Gnostic of him. The word Gnostic means knowing, and I interpret that as someone who behaves as if God, reality, truth is knowable. I see all three of those words as interchangeable, so use whichever one has the least amount of baggage for you. My reader felt that you could convey truth maybe in symbology, like art, music, theater, poetry, but not in straightforward language. I feel like conveying the meaning of life in something called abstract number 3 is a trick. It's something that relies on a snobbery of, I get this, but you don't. That isn't really putting yourself out there and explaining things in a way that you expect someone else to understand and be able to challenge you on it. Even the word symbology has logos in it. It is a language of symbols. The same way that the word theology is a discourse, is words about the divine. I don't think we should be giving that up to only church-authorized, sanctioned people. I think we should be claiming these kinds of discussions for ourselves. The definition I found of cosmology was a discourse about the material universe as an ordered whole, and then later it became the branch of metaphysics which discusses the ultimate philosophical problems relating to the existence of the universe. Astrology itself began as a telling of the stars, or maybe as looking at the stars and what they're telling us. In my book, How to Dismantle an Empire, I quote Susan George as talking about the eco-logos, and that logos is the purpose or the meaning behind it, whereas economos, economy, is the set of rules that govern it. In the same way, we can look at astronomos, or astronomy, as the set of rules that govern the stars. But the astrologos is the purpose or the meaning from looking at this as a 2D screen from our perspective of the Earth, even though we're putting things together in constellations that are really millions of light years away from each other. Isaac Middle describes what he does as wholesome astrology, by which he means a holistic view. He invokes this image. Imagine, for example, our soul as a shooting star bursting through the sky clock at the exact commencement of our conscious existence here, and taking with it the exact energetic imprint of the luminaries at that moment. So I'm offering Isaac's poetic description as a tease because I'll be going deeper into his analysis and this idea of Vedic astrology that has been totally new to me. Astrology, or astrologos, is behaving as if the stars have meaning and purpose, as if there is a consciousness that is guiding and governing their movement. Even more, it's imagining that we, as individuals, have as much meaning to that consciousness as those stars. It's not the stars that govern us. It's that our trajectory of our life has been aligned with the most beneficial cosmos that is fitting our life's purpose and supporting us on our life's purpose. What could be more practical than studying that? One mind dreaming. Now let's look at how A Course in Miracles relates to this concept of cosmology. When I use the term consciousness, I do not mean a creator God who made both heavenly and earthly bodies, because I am not dogmatic about that. I am not dogmatic about my belief in the material world or myself as a body separate from all other bodies and separate from all other minds. Sometimes people object to my statement that my sole dogma is that I am no better than anyone else, that we are morally equal. What they're ignoring is how many things are therefore not dogma to me. That for most people, the existence of the world is dogma. The existence of themselves as separate is dogma. And once you release those, it makes a lot of other things possible. This dogma, believing myself to be a body, a separate mind, the material world, it goes unnamed because it's an assumption that is so deeply buried that we don't even see it as a choice. Let's look at a passage from A Course in Miracles explaining why that might be. It reads, "This is salvation's keynote. What I see reflects a process in my mind, which starts with my idea of what I want. From there, the mind makes up an image of the thing the mind desires, judges valuable, and therefore seeks to find. These images are then projected outward, looked upon, esteemed as real, and guarded as one's own. From insane wishes comes an insane world. From judgment comes a world condemned. And from forgiving thoughts, a gentle world comes forth, with mercy for the holy beloved of God, to offer her a kindly home where she can rest a while before she journeys on and helps her siblings walk ahead with her and find the way to heaven and to God." Poets might note that that was an iambic pentameter, Shakespeare's rhythm, except where I changed a few things, like instead of Holy Son of God, I put Holy Beloved of God. And I also change God the Father to God the Lover, and He to She to represent the unified self. If we think of God as masculine, and I think we have to include gender, I don't think it's possible to have a personal relationship with an entity that isn't personified. So I agree that I think we should think of God as masculine, but that means that we have to think of the unified self as feminine, or half of humanity is left out of the divine. If men want to speak of the goddess, then they can personify humanity as he, but you can't have it both ways. For millennia, women have been told that mankind, man, and he is universal and includes all of us. So I think that now we can talk about the universal she without anyone taking offense. Suck it up, Buttercup. That course passage shows why the desire for superiority is so dangerous, because if what you want is superiority, what you're going to create are people who are less than you, less trustworthy, less honorable, people who just wouldn't do the things that you would do. Congratulations! That means that these are the people you're going to be surrounded by. As a meme I included says, the dildo of consequences rarely comes lubed. If we are one mind dreaming, we are a mind divided, because part of it is still aware, is remembering our unity with each other and with God. This is often called the Christ mind, but I'd like to find a feminine alternative for that. Could we call it womb mind, sacra mind, spider mind, jellyfish mind? And then there's the fragmented left behind mind that wants to just burn it all down. Gnostics talk about the demiurge God, the one who created and rules this world. I think that is us in our nightmare mind, the one that is the suicide wish of an eternal being and enacts the bloody sacrifice again and again on all of those shadow selves that it has projected itself onto. Astrology uses celestial zodiac and lunar archetypes, and this is something that William Hunter Duncan explored in a beautiful post called the King archetype. In it, he looks at the etymology of the word archetype, and in a way, the King archetype is redundant because archetype itself comes from archon or ruler and type. So it is the idealized type of that king. He looks at the Jungian framework and quotes from The King Within by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette on the shadow selves. They write, "The animosity we feel is ultimately toward ourselves, but it often takes a lot of work before we can realize this. The shadow endorses this work because it longs for reintegration. It is the shadow's method to lead us into holding our impossibly defensive, illogical positions, in order to confront us with whatever psychic complexes we would rather forget. Our real-world hatreds are most usually against these inner complexes, and our shadow works by repetition compulsion to call our attention to them. Rather than face any rejected qualities, whether positive or negative, within ourselves, we frequently deal with our shadow by projecting those qualities onto others. As an ego, we don't project them, but our shadow does so in order to focus our interest on its feelings, wishes, and agendas. Our shadow induces us to see other people we disapprove of or dislike in colors that are only marginally like their true colors, but which are colors that the shadow itself possesses. Jung believed that withdrawing a projection of the shadow and owning it as a part of ourselves requires enormous moral courage. He also believed that what we will not face within our psyche, we will be forced to confront in the outer world. So if we can claim our shadow's qualities and learn from them, we diffuse much of the interpersonal conflict we would otherwise encounter. People who have served as the screens for our shadow projections become less odious and more human. At the same time, we experience ourselves as richer, more complex, and more powerful individuals. That concept of Jungian dream work and shadow work is a core concept in the Course, that perception is projection. Let's end with a final passage from the Course. Salvation is a promise made by God that you would find your way to Him at last. It cannot but be kept. It guarantees that time will have an end, and all the thoughts that have been born in time will end as well. God's word is given every mind which thinks that it has separate thoughts, and will replace these thoughts of conflict with the thought of peace. Salvation is undoing in the sense that it does nothing, failing to support the world of dreams and malice. Thus, it lets illusions go. By not supporting them, it merely lets them quietly go down to dust. And what they hid is now revealed, an altar to the holy name of God, whereon His word is written, with the gifts of your forgiveness, laid before it, and the memory of God not far behind. So we are the only word of God, and that word is that it is all going to be okay. And for more in this practical vein, here is Meaning is All There Is, and this is Forgiveness is the Shortcut. Thank you for watching.